Welcome to Module 1, Research Fundamentals and Philosophy of Science. Today we're diving into Lesson 4, where we'll explore positivism and post-positivism, two influential paradigms that have shaped scientific inquiry across disciplines for generations. By the end of this session, you'll be able to achieve these key objectives. First, you'll identify the key principles of positivism and post-positivism. Second, you'll compare and contrast these related yet distinct paradigms. And third, you'll analyze the methodological implications of positivist assumptions, how these philosophical foundations affect the ways we design and conduct research. Let's begin with the historical development of positivism. This paradigm emerged in the 19th century as a reaction against metaphysical speculation and religious dogma. Positivism rejected anything that couldn't be directly observed or measured, emphasizing the importance of observable phenomena as the only legitimate source of knowledge. It sought to apply scientific methods, which had been so successful in the natural sciences, to all forms of inquiry, including the study of human behavior and society. The ultimate goal was to discover universal laws that governed both natural and social phenomena, similar to how Newton had identified laws of motion. Two major figures stand out in the development of positivism. Auguste Comte, often considered the founder of positivism, proposed a hierarchy of sciences, with mathematics at the foundation, followed by astronomy, physics, chemistry, biology, and finally sociology, which he termed social physics. Later, in the early 20th century, the Vienna Circle, a group of philosophers including Rudolf Carnap, Otto Neurath, and Moritz Schlick, developed logical positivism. They introduced the verification principle, which held that meaningful statements must be either empirically verifiable or logically provable. Otherwise, they were considered nonsensical. Positivism rests on these core principles. Empiricism is central, the belief that knowledge comes only from sensory experience. Objectivity is paramount, the idea that researchers can and should remain neutral observers. Value-free inquiry is emphasized, the notion that facts and values can and should be separated. The scientific method, with its systematic observation and experimentation, is seen as the only valid approach to knowledge. Reductionism, breaking complex phenomena into simpler components, and determinism, the belief that events are governed by causal laws, are also key principles. Finally, generalization is a primary goal, developing universal laws that apply across contexts. These principles lead to specific assumptions about reality and knowledge. Ontologically, positivism asserts a single, objective reality that exists independently of our perceptions. Epistemologically, it positions the researcher as a neutral observer who can attain objective knowledge through proper methods. The world is viewed as mechanistic and ordered, a place governed by discoverable laws that operate consistently. These assumptions have profound implications for how research is conducted and what counts as valid knowledge. Given these assumptions, positivist research typically takes experimental approaches that test hypotheses, often using quantitative methods. Concepts must be operationalized, defined in ways that allow precise measurement. Statistical analysis is employed to identify patterns and relationships. Replication is valued highly, the ability of different researchers to achieve the same results when following the same procedures. Research quality is judged by criteria such as validity, measuring what you claim to measure, reliability, consistency of measurement, and objectivity, freedom from bias. Despite its contributions, positivism faces significant critiques. Human behavior, unlike physical phenomena, isn't always predictable or governed by universal laws. Observer effects are unavoidable. The very act of observation can change what's being observed, especially in social research. The ideals of pure objectivity and value-free inquiry have been questioned. Researchers inevitably bring their own perspectives and values. Recognition has grown that knowledge is socially constructed rather than simply discovered. These limitations led to important revisions in scientific thinking. In response to these critiques, post-positivism emerged in the mid-20th century. It maintains a commitment to scientific method and empirical inquiry, but acknowledges the imperfections in our pursuit of objectivity. Post-positivism recognizes that observation is theory-laden. What we see is influenced by our existing theories and assumptions. It accepts that knowledge is uncertain and provisional rather than absolute. This represents a significant shift in how we understand science while maintaining its core commitment to rigorous inquiry. Karl Popper was instrumental in developing post-positivist thought through his principle of falsification. He argued that scientific theories can never be proven true, only proven false, and that we should formulate conjectures and then attempt to refute them. Thomas Kuhn also contributed significantly with his concept of paradigm shifts, demonstrating that science doesn't progress linearly, but through revolutionary changes in thinking. His work highlighted how observations are theory-laden. Scientists working within different paradigms literally see different things when looking at the same phenomena. Post-positivism embraces critical realism, the belief that reality exists independently but can only be known imperfectly. It advocates modified objectivity, acknowledging that complete objectivity is impossible but still worth pursuing as an ideal. Falsification replaces verification. Good theories are those that withstand rigorous attempts to disprove them. Truth is seen as probabilistic rather than absolute. We can approach truth but never claim to have found it definitively. Multiple perspectives are valued for giving a more complete picture of reality. Self-criticism becomes essential, continually questioning our methods and conclusions. These principles lead to distinct research assumptions. Ontologically, post-positivism maintains that reality exists, but acknowledges it can only be known imperfectly. Epistemologically, objectivity remains a regulatory ideal to strive for, even if never fully achieved. Knowledge is viewed as probabilistic rather than certain, always subject to revision based on new evidence. This humility about what we can know represents a significant shift from traditional positivism while maintaining scientific rigor. Post-positivist research employs a few different measures and triangulation, using different methods to study the same phenomenon. It embraces critical multiplism, the idea that multiple approaches and perspectives strengthen research findings. There's greater acceptance of studying phenomena in naturalistic contexts rather than solely in controlled laboratory settings. Mixed methods research, combining quantitative and qualitative approaches, often aligns with post-positivist thinking. Replication remains important, but with recognition of contextual factors that may influence findings. Let's directly compare these paradigms. They share important similarities, both value empirical inquiry, methodological rigor, and seek to develop generalizable knowledge. But they differ in key ways. Positivism pursues certainty, while post-positivism accepts probability. Positivism relies on verification, while post-positivism emphasizes falsification. They also treat objectivity and truth differently. Positivism sees these as achievable goals, while post-positivism views them as regulatory ideals we approach but never fully attain. Both paradigms continue to influence contemporary research. We see their impact in evidence-based practice movements across disciplines, epidemiological research, and randomized controlled trials, often considered the gold standard in intervention research. Systematic reviews, mixed methods approaches, and program evaluation strategies also reflect positivist and post-positivist principles. Many scientific communities now operate with post-positivist assumptions, even if they don't explicitly identify with the term. What are the practical implications for research methods? Post-positivism encourages methodological pluralism, using multiple approaches rather than relying on a single method. It emphasizes transparency in reporting methods and results so others can evaluate the quality of evidence. Replication remains valued, but with greater attention to context. Contextual and ecological validity become more important, whether findings apply in real-world settings. Researcher positionality is acknowledged rather than ignored. How the researcher's perspective might influence the inquiry. Let's consider how these paradigms might approach educational research differently. A strictly positivist approach might use controlled experimental designs with standardized measures and statistical analysis to identify universal principles of learning. A post-positivist approach, while still concerned with rigor, might conduct research in natural classroom settings, employ mixed methods, and offer more cautious generalizations that acknowledge contextual factors that might limit transferability. Similarly, in health research, a positivist approach might prioritize laboratory studies with strict controls and focus on single outcomes, like physiological changes. A post-positivist approach might conduct studies in clinical settings, acknowledge patient variability, and consider real-world factors that influence treatment outcomes. Both seek to develop evidence-based practices, but post-positivism is more attentive to complexity and context. Post-positivism offers unique strengths as a research paradigm. It maintains scientific rigor while embracing a more realistic view of what science can achieve. It better accommodates complexity, particularly important when studying human behavior and social phenomena. It supports methodological pluralism rather than insisting on a single right way to conduct research. And it provides a philosophical foundation for evidence-based research that acknowledges limitations while still pursuing rigorous knowledge development. Despite these advances, post-positivism still has limitations. It may continue to privilege experimental designs and quantitative methods, potentially overlooking the importance of meaning and interpretation. It maintains some separation between facts and values, which critical theorists argue is impossible. It may reduce complex social phenomena to measurable variables and overlook knowledge systems from non-Western traditions. These limitations have led to the development of alternative paradigms like interpretivism and critical theory, which we'll explore in future lessons. As we conclude, I encourage you to reflect on these questions. Which positivist or post-positivist assumptions do you find compelling, and which do you question? How have positivist approaches influenced research standards and practices in your discipline? Consider a research question you're interested in. How would it be approached from a post-positivist perspective? And what limitations might remain even with this more nuanced approach? Taking time to reflect on these questions will deepen your understanding of these influential paradigms and their implications for your own research journey. Thank you for your attention. In our next lesson, we'll explore interpretivism and constructivism, which represent a significant departure from the paradigms we've discussed today